Is the blackness of your graphite pencils not dark enough? Do the graphite pencils keep shining in contact with light? This can be very frustrating, especially when it comes to photographing artwork. No worries, after many searches, I have found a great solution that will solve this problem. After this tutorial, you will discover a great way to add contrast and depth to your graphite drawings. My name is Dragos Pepina, and in today's video I am going to compare my 10B graphite pencil, which is the highest in my set, with a black pencil from Faber-Castell Polychromos. These two pencils will be put side by side, and I will explain why it's better to use a black pencil instead of a graphite pencil for the darkest areas of your artwork. Towards the end, I will demonstrate how I use it for 3 different textures: a beak, skin and feathers. To make a clearer differentiation, I made some swatches with each of the two pencils, starting from very dark to very light. What can be seen at the first glance is that the graphite pencil shines very brightly in contact with light when very high pressure is applied and its pigment fills in as much of the paper's texture as possible. On the other hand, the black pencil has a different reaction when the same pressure is applied, as it has a very dense and matte black appearance. The less pressure we apply, the more similar the two pencils become, although a slight hint of pearlescence can still be seen in graphite, especially if you bring a light source close to them. What I would recommend to do to avoid the glossy effect is to do the base layers or shading using the graphite pencils, and over, using the black pencil, create the details. If in the previous demo we split the gradient into several parts, now I will make a linear gradient starting with the graphite. Using a very high pressure on the pencil, I gradually lifted the pencil off the paper as much as possible towards the light area. As we know from the previous swatches, the graphite shines very bright when a high pressure is applied. Then, towards the light area, the shimmer starts to disappear, the reason being that for highlights we don't need a lot of pressure, which doesn't make the texture of the paper to be filled, this being one of the main reasons. There's no question that the black pencil is a much better candidate for the darker areas, based on what we see now in the demo. That dense black will never be reached by a graphite pencil, not even the highest graphite grade there is. The black pencil from Faber-Castell Polychromos is oil-based, which helps a lot. Before I discovered this trick, I was always frustrated when I wanted to take a final picture of my artwork, but no angle seemed good enough to get rid of that glow of the dark areas. One day it occurred to me to try the black pencil, as I already knew from my experience with the color pencils that it's very good. From the first time I saw a huge difference, and since then I'm always using it with my graphite pencils. Lastly, I placed the paper near a lamp to see the difference. When the paper is slightly moved, the graphite glows immediately, while the black pencil retains its density. The first subject I'm going to use the black pencil on is a toucan bird. This drawing was done in graphite, but I will add some shading in the beak area to show you how much the appearance of a drawing can change when the contrast is in place. First, to get the best rendering end results, make circular movements when creating the shadows to distribute the pigment throughout and get the same depth everywhere. The two ends of the beak were drawn only using a high pressure on the black pencil, this little trick bringing the whole area to life. A drawing can have perfect detail or on-point proportions, but if the contrast doesn't have enough light or dark areas, the life in the drawing will automatically be gone. That's why we need to get over the fear of using a black pencil with a very high pressure or adding some very strong highlights. I mention this from my own experience because a few years ago I got to the point where I didn't know why my work didn't get past that mediocre stage to realism, being very afraid to press too hard on the pencil or even leave some areas completely white in the drawing. These two things being right in front of me and some of the resources I needed to advance, but I was too blinded by fear to see them. The second demo will be done on another drawing of mine, this time an elephant made entirely of graphite. Back then I wasn't at that stage where I discovered the black pencil yet, so it lacks in contrast and has a slight tint of looking washed out. What makes me proud of myself when I did this drawing is the play of light used, which seems like a roller coaster that takes the viewer's eyes to as many areas as possible. The focus here was to give depth and texture to the ear, not to have a hyperrealistic end result. When the tones are in place and well thought out beforehand, the details will just fill in and help the process a bit. Many beginners focusing only on the details but forgetting that without a good base, everything will fall apart in the end. Now let's see what difference it will make in drawing feathers, which in this case are very similar to fur, they being very small and fine on this bird. In this drawing, the whole dark area of the head and chest has been done entirely with black pencil, and the final result, as you can see, is incredible. The texture of the feathers differs from that of the skin or beak in the previous examples. Here I focus mostly on correct direction and trying to make each feather in one short movement with the right pressure. I didn't go directly to the darker lines, I created a base from some medium lines, then gradually moved to the darker ones, this being a rule of thumb, as the marks made with a very high pressure are almost impossible to erase, so the safest way is to build our way up. I should mention as well that you can use whatever black pencil you have at hand. It doesn't have to be exactly the one I'm using right now, although I recommend it with all my heart, but I realize not everyone has it at their disposal. Now we came to an end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it and you've learned a lot from it. I am posting one time a week and normally graphite, colored pencil or pastel related videos, so if you don't want to miss any of those, please hit that subscribe button and the bell button as well to be notified every time a video goes live, and I really hope I'm going to see you in the next one as well. Have a nice day. Bye guys!